Well, Joy, in this video we're going to look at how we can resolve relationship conflicts in Solid Edge. We have this fully constrained plate on our tower. The problem is the plate isn't positioned where we want it. There is an interference or clash between the plate and the part we are using as the walkway. So we want to move this plate to the other side of our tower. There are different ways of doing this. In this video we will apply an assembly relationship. Because the plate is already fully constrained, this will cause a relationship conflict, which we will solve to fix our assembly. This plate we want to move is a part in a sub-assembly. We'll get started by clicking on the sub-assembly in the Pathfinder and clicking Edit. When you're editing a document in place inside an assembly, you can toggle your view between showing and hiding other parts in the assembly by pressing the Ctrl and Q keyboard shortcut. In traditional CAD systems, if you wanted to move this plate, you could look at creating assembly relationships. So let's look at that. So I'm going to go to Home, Axial Align, and I'm going to click on this peg, and I'm going to choose this peg here. And something a bit mad and confusing looking has happened. And if we look at our assembly, instead of our plate moving to that block, the block was pulled to the plate. That happened because when we resized this plate in an earlier video, we removed 2 rows of pegs that were under the block. Assembly relationships applied to pegs in those rows were broken. When we created assembly relationships between the fully constrained plate and unconstrained blocks, the blocks moved to fulfill the assembly relationships. That didn't really help us at all, so I'm just going to hit undo. So let's try a different assembly relationship. So I'm going to go axial align again. I'm going to choose the same peg here, and I'm going to go around, and this time I'm going to try this peg of this block. And now we get this conflicting relationships notice between this assembly document and this mirror feature. So I'm just going to click OK for now, and if we look up here, we have a resolve relationship conflict. And now we have a list of all of the different relationships within this assembly that are affected. So I'm just going to actually maybe expand out this window so we can see it a little bit better. And we see here our requested relationship is unsolved, and that's because we have conflicting relationship. So Solid Edge is kind of instructing us here, suppress relationships to resolve conflicts. Let's take a look here. So as I hover over any of these relationships, the actual relationship, the geometry that the relationship is applied to gets highlighted. So the relationship we're trying to apply is highlighted green. We have the 2 cylindrical features that we're trying to apply coaxial relationship with. And yeah, so you can kind of see there. And we have this relationship here. So as I hover over our part, you can see the geometry highlighted kind of orange. We have the peg of the 45-degree block and the peg of the 1 peg block. Both cylinders have a coaxial line applied to them. So they are what's stopping that relationship from being applied. So I could tick on this box here, and I could tick apply, and now we see what's happened. So we no longer have that coaxial alignment between the cylinder of this block and the cylinder of this block here. And that means that this 45-degree block is free to move. So that block moved inwards, and this peg of the block moved in to satisfy that coaxial relationship with the peg of this plate above. And now you see in this relationship conflict dialog, we have this relationship we tried to apply, and now it's saying solved. So we've kind of solved the relationship problem, but actually it's not what we want at all. It's kind of a mess. We've kind of lost part of our tower that was actually doing something for us. So that wasn't really the way forward. And Solid Edge is pretty forgiving. We can unsuppress it and click apply, and we get this warning again. So I'm going to click OK for that, and you see, click OK, and you can see that our part has gone back to its original position. But also we have the same error up here. Our relationship now is unsolved again. All right. So there are more relationships here. We have some mates, which I suspect aren't the cause of the problem. And we have this relationship here, which is another axial align. And you see, as I hover over it, it's an axial align between the cylinder of this peg and the cylinder of the peg above it in the plate. So if I was to suppress that and click apply, we still have this dialog, so click OK. So we haven't resolved our issue, but let's go through again and we go to the next one and we have a cylinder again. Let's zoom in there. So we have the cylinder of this peg. It's actually the cylindrical hole of that peg and the cylinder of the peg above it. Okay, so that's interesting. So I'm going to click suppress on that and go down here and click apply. Click OK. Okay, so that's two of those suppressed. And let's see what's here. So we have this, just a little bit difficult to see. So I'm just zooming in and I'm just hovering over. Okay, so all right, this looks like what I thought this one was. So I'm not sure, but I'm just maybe it's the same relationship applied twice. I'm gonna suppress that and click apply and click OK. And now let's look for the next one. Okay, so this is here. Okay, so yeah, that's another axial align between the peg of our 45-degree cylinder and the peg on the plate above it. So we can suppress that. So it looks like there's actually a lot more assembly relationships that were actually required to fully constrain this part. So if I click on this part, we can see here that I'm over in this part of our assembly. So I'm going to zoom in over here and hover over it. I haven't applied this one yet, but I'm just going to apply what I need to. I'll just select them first and then apply. So just not sure about that. So let's hover again. Okay, so that actually looks like that is the peg on the plate. And that little cylinder there is actually the hollow inside the pegs. So that's actually causing the parts to move with the plate. So I'm not going to suppress that for now. And I'm just going to move to the next one. That actually looks like a mate. I think these other ones are planar aligns. Alright, so that looks like everything that I want to apply. So I'm just going to click apply. And now we can see, I don't know if you saw it there. I'm just going to ignore that for now. Now you can see our plate has moved. So you can see we have 4 suppressed relationships. And I'm going to just click OK. And you see now our plate has moved. I'm going to exit out of this axial align command. Okay, so there's our part. I'm just going to right click on it and choose scroll to. And you see it's not fully constrained anymore. And if we go down here, we can see we have these 4 suppressed relationships and several axial aligns. And it has moved to satisfy the relationship as we wanted. So it's now moved over here. And if I press Ctrl and Q, our walkway appears and we can see our walkway is no longer clashing with our plate. We'll still need to do a little bit of work there, but we no longer have that clash or interference. But you'll see as well that actually the bricks on top of our plate have moved with the plate, and now they're kind of in the wrong position. Where we wanted this yellow block to be flush with the side of the plate, it's now overhanging it. So our plate and the parts above it aren't fully constrained. To get them constrained, it's just a matter of working through it step by step. So we'll start off with the plate because all of the parts above the plate are linked to it. So if we can fully constrain the plate, that's a good basis for us to fully constrain the blocks above it. First of all, maybe we'll just investigate how the plate is able to move. So I'm going to use drag component, click OK, and I'm going to use a freeform move. So just try and drag the plate around and we see what's happening there now. So the plate is moving about this peg that we created the relationship with, and it's just pivoting around that. So there's just one axial align that's holding it in place. It looks like it's fine vertically, it's not able to move vertically, so it's just pivoting about that one axial align. So I'm just going to hit reset here and maybe just create a second axial align. We can just choose this peg and we can choose the peg below it. And now if I click on the plate, we see that is now fully constrained in the assembly. And actually a lot of the parts above it have become constrained too, but they're kind of constrained in the wrong position, so that's not ideal either. Maybe let's get started looking at how we can constrain them. So we know this yellow brick, we want the side of this to be flush with the side of our base plate, and to do that would mean this peg has an axial alignment with this peg here. So let's just apply that. So I'm going to choose axial align between both of those cylinders. And again, we have a relationship conflict. That's okay. So let's just have a look at what relationships are preventing that. So I'm just hovering over the different relationships that are preventing it. So we can see the axial align between the peg of the 2x1 block with the peg of our yellow block. We see the axial align between the peg of the other 2x1 block with the peg of our yellow block. And then we see over here an axial align between the peg of our base plate and the peg of this orange cylinder. So it's a little bit difficult to see, and maybe we can have a look at that in more detail. So maybe I'm just going to create a parallel plane. And just place it here, and we could select that plane, go to PMI and choose section by plane and click OK and finish. Alright, so let's take a little look inside and see what's going on here. I'm just going to hide those planes now to clean up our view. We can go into Home, Axial Align, and we're going to try again to reapply the axial align between this peg and this peg. And again, we're getting that relationship conflict. And I think the one we were looking at was here. So let's just zoom in here and hover over it. And you can see that relationship clearer now. So it's between the peg of our base plate and the hollow cylinder inside the peg of our orange block. So that's holding that orange block in position relative to our base plate. But we want to move that along by 2 pegs. So that relationship there definitely isn't helping us. So I'm just going to hit suppress for that. And we look at the next one. If we go around to the other side, we can see something similar going on here. So this is a peg on our base plate with the peg on the green block. So I'm going to suppress that one. And we can look around to the other side again. And we see something going on here. So we have again a peg on the base plate to the hollow cylinder, the hollow cutout inside the peg on our green block. We can suppress this, and that's all of the axial aligns. So I'm going to just zoom out to see what happens, and I'm going to click apply, and nothing has actually happened, and our relationship is still unsolved. So let's see what other relationships we have. A relationship, a mate with the top of the plate, which isn't really something that concerns us. It's not in the plane we're trying to move. And we have a planar align here, which doesn't really concern us. And we have another planar align here, which doesn't really concern us. So we have these axial aligns at the top. So let's take another look at those. Okay, so I'm just going to try suppressing this and suppressing this. Click apply. And now our block is free to move into position, and our relationship is now showing up as solved. So I can just click OK, and we have kind of fixed that one part that's in the correct position. And maybe we could try this time applying an axial align with this peg here. So I'm just going to right click to clear our current selection and try and click on this peg. So even though that we were looking at a section view, the actual selected face is still visible, highlighted green, and I'm going to try and apply this axial align to the peg of this cylinder on our base plate. And again, we have a relationship conflict here, and you kind of know that it's going to be the axial align because that's how this part is, that's how these parts are kind of located. So we can see it here though. We have an axial align between the peg of the base plate and the hollow of the peg on the block above. So we can just tick this box and suppress that, and now the block is free to move and that relationship is solved. So I can click OK, and just to I don't think that block is fully constrained. Let me just right click. I'll just click on that block and choose scroll to. That is fully constrained. That's okay. And our yellow block isn't fully constrained. So let's just investigate how our yellow block is free to move. So drag component, click OK, freeform move, and yeah, it's pivoting around the axial align we've placed. So we can just choose another axial align, maybe between this peg and this peg. And that locks it into position. Right click to exit, click on the part, and now it's fully constrained. So we have this part constrained. I'm just going to check this part now. Okay, so it looks like this part has actually moved for us when we fix this part. So if we click on this part and just right click and choose scroll to, it's not fully constrained. So let's investigate that. So again, we're going to use drag component, click OK. We're going to do a freeform move. Oh, and it kind of disappeared there because I was moving it into our section view. So it didn't really disappear. It was just inside the cut section, if you know what I mean. So it looks like it's rotating around the axis of this peg. So we've an axial align between these pegs here. So I'm just going to try and apply an axial align, can be with either of the other two pegs. So between these two pegs, and I'm just going to right click to exit, and now click on that part again, and that's fully constrained. And now let's take a look at this one. As we click on this one, we see it fully constrained within the assembly. So that's okay. Now we can take a look at this one. That's fully constrained. So we can have a look at the other side now. And we have this block here. And that's fully constrained, but it's constrained wrong. So again, let's take a look at how we can fix that. And I kind of liked actually the section view. It just made it a lot clearer what we were actually doing instead of trying to look through blocks. So maybe we'll do another section view here just to make things a little bit easier to follow. So let's go with features, parallel plane, and we can choose this plane, and we're going to locate it to the center of this peg. All right, so I'm going to choose select, click on that new plane, and go to PMI, section by plane, and tick that box and click finish. So there's our section. This is the part we want to constrain. We want to kind of move this. We want to apply an assembly relationship between the axis of this peg. So let's go with home, axial align, choose the cylinder of this peg, and well, we could choose the internal or the external. They're both coaxial, so that's okay. So now that block has jumped where we want it, and I can just right click to exit. So I'm just going to left click on that block, right click on the block, and choose scroll to, and that's fully constrained, so that's okay. Well, you see now our orange block, it's actually clashing with our orange block. So that green block is here and the orange block is here, so they're kind of overlapping by two pegs. Maybe the easiest thing to do is to just click on this green block and maybe just hide it. Okay, and now we're going to try and apply assembly relationships to move this block up by two pegs. So again, we can go with an axial align from the cylinder at this peg. We want to have an axial align with the cylinder of this peg, and that jumps across. And I'm just going to right click on that block. I'm just going to right click on that block and choose scroll to, and that's fully constrained. And while we're here, I'm just going to show the other block we've hidden. So now they're no longer clashing with each other. But now we have the orange block clashing with our green block by two pegs. So we need to do something similar there. So maybe this time I can hide the orange block and create an axial align between the cylinder of this peg and the cylinder of this peg. Again, we have our relationship conflict, and we can investigate that. So we kind of know now at this stage that we want to, where we're interested, because we're moving it in the plane of our mates and our planar aligns. What we're really interested in are our axial aligns. So I can hover over them to investigate. So this one is the relationship between this block and the block above it. So I'm not really too worried about that at the moment. And if I hover over this one, we see this is between the base plate and the hollow cylinder inside our peg. So that actually is getting in our way. And if we go over here, this is similar. We have an axial relationship between the middle peg of our block and the peg below it on the base plate. So we want that's stopping us moving, so we can suppress that. Let's see what's the bottom on here. That I think is okay. So I'm just going to click apply, and our part moves and our relationship is solved. I can click OK, right click to exit, and just click on that part, and that is now fully constrained. We can now show the part we'd hidden previously, and they're no longer clashing with each other, and these two aren't clashing with each other either. Okay, so we have two parts now that aren't fully constrained. The rest of them look to be okay. So we want to see where that part is. So we can click on it, and I think it's actually highlighted here. Okay, so the reason it's kind of disappearing is because of our section view, and the same for this one here. Well, this one isn't quite the section view, so I can click on this one. Okay, so we can look at the axial align here. Yeah, and that's between the peg of this cylinder and the peg of the block below it, which is exactly what we want. The other axial align, I'm not sure about, so maybe just to make things a little bit clearer, we can go to our section views here and just hide them, and that's looking a lot better. And now we can look at our two parts. So this part here is having an issue, and this part here. Alright, so let's start at the nearest one, and we can see here we have a suppressed, we can see down here we have a suppressed axial align. So I'm just hovering over that axial align, and we can see that it's between the peg of our block and the peg of the block below it, and actually that seems like a sensible axial align to have. So I'm just going to try right clicking on that relationship and click on suppress, and now looking at our part in the Pathfinder, it's now fully constrained. And we can look at the other part, and we can see something similar has happened here. We have a suppressed axial align between the peg of the block and the peg of the block below it, which actually makes sense to have. So I'm just going to right click on that relationship and click on suppress. And now that part is fully constrained within the assembly. So now we're looking good. So it kind of looked like a lot of work, but it wasn't really that bad. So now we have our part moved to the correct position, and the parts above it are all fully constrained and in the right position too. That wasn't too bad. It was kind of a little bit old school, so there are other ways of doing that. So in our next video, we're going to look at how we could have done this move using the steering wheel in Solid Edge. Okay, Joy, that's it. Talk to you in the next one.